Streaming from Oklahoma's own digital studio, this is OSU Football Update, brought to you by Bronze.
Well, welcome into an OSU Football Update, live from the digital studios here at Griffin Media, brought to you by our friends at Brahms, as we go in-depth with the Oklahoma State football department that has been, well, in upheaval. I think that's a nice way to put it over the past week or so, with more changes happening over the weekend. So let's check in with John Holcomb, who joins us now. John, it has been, well, let's just say, a bit of a strange week in Stillwater with everything that's happening, from letting go of Mike Gundy to the naming of Doug Meacham to actually having to play a football game. We can't forget about that, and the upcoming schedule that they face inside the Big 12 Conference. Oh, and by the way, they made a change with their defensive coordinator. So let's just start there. Level of surprise from you that they moved on from Coach Grantham after the game was over on Saturday?
Based on the results, Pop, I was not shocked. Mildly surprised, maybe is the best way to put it. But there have been some recurring issues with the defense. When the phrase "eye discipline" keeps getting used over the course of about the last three games, going back to Oregon, then that suggests something, that guys, because you've got some guys with experience back there, but that suggests that maybe what they were being asked to do, that maybe there was too much thinking going on and not enough flying around the ball. And when that happens and the numbers are piled up the way that Oregon and the way that Baylor did, and to a certain extent the way that Tulsa started the game out with Foley being wide open, it was another eye discipline type of thing, then that suggests that maybe what they're being asked to do is not in their wheelhouse at the moment. And so, I mean, you're making other changes, just maybe you seemed like, why not do it now?
It really feels like, maybe I'm completely off on this, but it feels like that this was a move that is also a little bit more of a level of comfort with Doug Meacham, who's the interim, with his relationship that he's had with the new interim DC, Clint Bowen, which we'll get into here in a bit. But if you are trying to just calm the waters a bit and keep the program at a specific level moving into whoever the next head coach is going to be, I feel like there needs to be some camaraderie, some trust value from the head coach compared to what's happening on the defensive side of the ball, which hasn't been great.
Yeah, I think that I think there are differences in personalities is one way of putting it. And Doug Meacham comes off as, while he's a fiery competitor, he comes off as more laid back. I mean, if you listen to him in his news conference on Monday, you know, it almost sounds kind of like, hey, I'd love to head to the beach. You know, he just has this relaxed way of communicating, and everyone knows, even before he got here, that Todd Grantham is more of an old school guy who will challenge his players to try to get the best out of them, not afraid to raise his voice. And that alone, between the two coordinators, you could see how it would be hard for them to get on the same page, or maybe they wouldn't be best friends. You know, one of those things. Doesn't mean it can't work, but right. If that's another hurdle you have to overcome, then maybe at this juncture, with the other change with Mike Gundy no longer being the head coach, that something probably needed to be done.
He reminds me a little bit of David Yost, who's been a long-time coordinator in college football. He's at New Mexico State now, but the thing about David Yost that always stands out, kind of longer hair, wears some shorts. You just expect him to have, I don't know, an old international scout, even in the desert, John, that has a surfboard on top of it. That's just kind of the vibe that he gives you when you talk to him, and you very much get that from Doug, which gets me to my next question. Do you need a personality like that right now during this time? I do think that there is some value to the way that you can handle things that's kind of more laid back in a very, what seems to be, stressful environment right now.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Pop. And by the way, Yost was at Missouri for a long time, wasn't he? He's been everywhere. But,
yes,
but
he has.
He would have the Salt Life sticker on the back of his international.
Don't even get me started on the Salt Life sticker. Like, okay, you're landlocked, all right? You don't need to have a Salt Life sticker on the back of your car if you're landlocked.
I know that's right in your wheelhouse. But, yeah, I do think that I think that's one of the main reasons why Doug Meacham was elevated to interim head coach. I mean, maybe not the main reason, but it's obviously his alma mater too. He played there when Mike Gundy was there. But yes, when Doug's approach is, guys, we're going to have fun. I mean, that totally takes you away from grinding moving forward. And if they'd had a guy come in and say, look, we're going to do it this way and I'm not putting up with any crap, I don't think that would work with those guys, because then you're just inviting a bunch more players to take advantage of the 30-day open transfer portal window, which at least 3 guys have decided to do it at this point. You're going to have some defections. There may be more. We'll see. But yeah, when your message is we're going to have fun, we're going to play hard, you get to play football, I think that's exactly the type of message that you should be putting out there to your team in this situation.
People forget about the 30-day window that opens up, and if you're just trying to get to the end of the season, that's probably the wrong way to phrase it. I don't think anyone's just trying to get to the end of the season, because they want to win games and they want to continue to cultivate and to build to get to that point. But it's a lot easier to catch more flies with honey, right, John, than you do with vinegar. And the last thing that you want to do is to kind of separate yourself from a team that has at least the option right now to jump in the portal if they want to.
Yeah, and by the way, vinegar has its good qualities. It has its positive uses. But yes.
Hey, I drink apple cider every day, baby.
Exactly.
One shot of apple cider vinegar a day.
But yeah, and so far with those 3, I think it's kind of ironic in a way, and I don't want to, I can't say this with 100% certainty, because I'd never seen long snapper Shea Frybaum without his helmet off, and our inside joke around here is without his helmet off smiling. But I believe it was him that walked by last Tuesday when we're inside the stadium getting ready to do some live TV about Chad Weiberg's news conference in the wake of firing Mike Gundy, and players were coming out of the West End zone after practice, after dinner, and I believe it was Shea that walked right by and was on a phone call, but with the AirPods in, he's saying something about, and it might not have been him, but I know how highly recruited he was and what a solid job he does. And then he mentions that one school has already had 2 people in contact with him. There were things out there about Dylan Smith having other schools contact. Look, it's still the Wild West when it comes to that type of thing. And then DeAndre Boykins, who had transferred in, had not really been playing much, special teams wise, maybe. So he's in there. And I found it interesting that the message from some of the players we spoke with on Monday was, we're going to move forward and have fun with the guys who want to be here. And I'm paraphrasing that, but even they understand that this is an individual deal for all these players. This is just the way the sport is now, and the flexibility that they have. And so it was said with, and we'll get back to something from Iman Oates a little bit in a little bit here, but it was said by Iman in terms of moving forward with the guys on the team. There was a seriousness to his tone about the guys that want to stay. It's almost like, okay, we want you to stay. We want to have a team. We want to be able to have enough guys where we can finish this thing out as good as we possibly can. But there was a seriousness to it, like he knows that there are some other guys that may be considering hopping in the portal as well.
Yeah, I would assume with the window open now that a lot of coaches and programs across the country are looking at Oklahoma State players right now like it's the salad bar at Western Sizzling. Like it's help yourself.
Sorry to interrupt, but also, the other thing to think about, the Cowboys have played 4 games. That's the max that you can play if you're considering redshirting and saving a year. So the guys who've played 4 games, and Dylan Smith would be one of them, that plays into this as well. Frybaum too.
Let's talk a little bit about Clint Bowen. We put up a pod on Oklahoma's Own Sports on YouTube. By the way, like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe right now for all of our sakes. Brought to you by Brahms, but it was basically an introduction to Clint Bowen. I mean, he talked for 17 minutes, so I clipped most of that and put that in that pod so people would have a good understanding about where he's coming from. But from what you know about Clint and from just being involved in the program right now, seems like a calming influence. It's a little weird considering that he was leaning more towards the offensive side with what his duties were on the staff, but it's still a guy that knows a lot of football. And more than anything, I think that this program just needs a moment of calm, a moment of just focusing on football. I think he provides that moving forward as the interim DC.
You know, I thought Clint struck a really good balance between giving his approach to the game, his approach to coaching, and also making sure that he wasn't tearing apart what Todd Grantham had put into place. In other words, the scheme, as he talked about it, you know, he said, look, the scheme, 4-2-5, and you know, with some different looks on the back end, that it's tried and true. A long tree of successful coaches has put that in there, and it's worked for Todd Grantham and other places. It just wasn't working in Stillwater. But, you know, I thought the balance between, without saying it, Bowen's approach in terms of communicating with players and Grantham's are two different things. Are they polar opposites? May depend on the day, may depend on the success rate, you know. But I really appreciated what Clint said, that he said, look, if the thing that stuck out to me the most was, if a player makes a mistake, then it's not on the player as much as it is, I said, I look at it like it's on the coaches, because you can't call something that's beyond what the players are prepared and ready to do. Now, he's probably falling on the sword a little more than he needs to, but the overall message is clear. The players can trust him. He's trying to establish that trust. The players can trust him that he's not going to blow them up over one mistake. He's going to say, okay, let's try and fix this and let's move it forward. It's just his approach. And I will say this, that people who've known him and the situations that he has coached through, because he's been a defensive guy overall, but taking over for Charlie Weiss, you know, 3 games into the 2014 season as interim head coach at Kansas, you know, he's had 2 stints at that. He understands the emotion and what works best, or what works as well as you can possibly hope for in situations like this. And honestly, that's why I thought, and I think we threw this out there last week, that I thought that he might be the interim head coach. Yeah. But I can understand why they didn't necessarily go that way, because for all of his years at the collegiate level, Coach Bowen was out of college and was coaching in high school a year ago, you know, and he's also had to learn how to coach his own kids, because he said yesterday that his older son got the brunt of it, and that Bowen's wife had to tell him, look, you have to take a different approach when you're talking about your own kids. And so Banks, his younger son, who's a backup quarterback at OSU now, who was at Tulsa last year, is benefited more from that changed approach. And I think the appreciation that Bowen had just by spending the year in high school, as he talked about, has helped refine his approach to this type of thing in college.
I think you can sum it up by saying they're going to simplify a few things, because if what you're telling me from just the eyes, right, and they're not seeing it, they're not diagnosing it, one, things probably a tad bit too complicated, and then if they're not identifying it and they're coming over to the sidelines, I've seen this happen, and they're just getting, and this is my opinion, by the way, but if they're getting beat down from a verbal standpoint because what they're not identifying just compounds the issue, because then it becomes an everyone's walking on eggshells type environment here if you're not understanding what the full responsibility is. To simplify things, to make things free and clear for them to just go play. Go play, rely on your instincts, free them up a little bit mentally, and you would be amazed about how much just overall the sideline presence is, how locked in they are a little bit more. I don't want to call it wrapping their arms around them and giving them a hug, but it is more of a positive encouragement than rather it is more of just always coming from the negative aspect, if that makes any sense.
Totally makes sense. And in fact, let's go back to Iman Oates for a moment, defensive tackle out of Edison here in Tulsa. Coach Bowen had not gotten in a room with the defense as of the time that we had talked with the players yesterday, right after Coach Bowen and Coach Meacham met with the media yesterday, but he had reached out, texted players, and this was Iman Oates' response and what he had to say about that exchange.
He's reached out and just let us know, like, that it's gonna be simple. We're gonna be able to fly around, kind of the same mentality that Meach had, just having fun. That's the main thing. Being out there having fun and at the same time executing assignments and playing for each other. So I think it'll be a good thing.
Do you feel like with some of the big plays that are given up, it's fixable if you just simplify it?
Yeah, and I feel like everybody needs to understand the role and the assignment, and knowing the call and the assignment within the call, that's the biggest thing. So everybody holding themselves accountable and everything like that. I feel like we'd be just right. We'd be just okay. Yeah.
Last thing from me is Arizona's quarterback, mobile, that sort of thing. That puts a premium on when you try to get pressure on him. You got to be disciplined with your lanes, right?
Definitely. I mean, that's the biggest thing each week, even with mobile or non-mobile quarterbacks, like giving them time if they're not mobile, but even if they're mobile, like the smallest lane they can find. So lane integrity is big. I know Coach I's going to be big on us this week about it, and being able to just go, though, at the same time, like having the mindset of just getting off the ball and getting after him, and having those lane integrity at the same time. So it'll be fun.
So you see kind of an excitement from Iman Oates in that soundbite, and he wasn't the only one that talked about that sort of thing. Malik Charles, the linebacker, edge rusher, also talked about an excitement moving forward. And I think you could see it overall, even though this was still with Coach Grantham on Saturday at Baylor, but you did see guys bouncing up and down on the sidelines, especially when they had the early success, although that was on the offensive end. You saw guys that were engaged, and I think that there's a greater opportunity for that engagement moving forward. And the other part about it too is the clear, caring communication from Bowen, the way he expresses himself. And again, this is not a knock on Todd Grantham at all, because his players, we talked to them, media days, and at the end of spring, and they would kind of laugh about, hey, he'll get after you, but we know he loves us. So there are different ways of getting it done. But back to your point earlier about what's the best approach emotionally, mentally for these guys right now, and I think Bowen understands that because of his history and knows how to provide it.
Yeah, and I don't want this version of a pod, John, to come across as we're just piling on Todd Grantham, because that's not what we're doing by any means. We're simply trying to put it in a context as to why the situation happened, and now moving forward, what the players and what the communication is going to be like from them to finish out the rest of the regular season. Because, as much as Todd has been, let go and is off to the side, like, this core group has to move on to the next week. And how do you become your best with potentially changing things up, because it comes down to philosophy of the guy that you've put in place to take over that spot. And that's essentially all that Clint Bowen talked about on Monday.
Exactly right. And, just the perspective thing is so important in a situation like this. And it's going to get to the X's and O's. And I know later this week, our good friend, the play-by-play radio voice of the Los Angeles Rams, J.B. Long, who worked with us here at News on 6 years ago, he's going to be on the call for TNT for this game at Arizona. And so we're going to catch up with him on a podcast later this week. And we'll get a little more into X's and O's, because the thing that Arizona does, and we'll just kind of mention this, offensively, Noah Fafita, quarterback, is a dual threat, very quick. And what they like to do is try to stretch you side to side more than they do vertically. And if you get caught too much, then they'll take the deep shot. So that's a very simplified version of what they do on offense. But, in terms of what Clint Bowen has been doing, because we didn't really touch on this. We hadn't touched on this yet, except you mentioned it very briefly. Clint Bowen, for being a defensive coach, that's really where he thrives. As an analyst, a quality control guy for Doug Meacham on the offensive side of the ball, Coach Meacham said yesterday that he had to teach Bowen how to draw the plays up backwards. He's like a reverse engineering because of his now he's got to go back to the other. But he's seen, at least from this standpoint, it's an interesting perspective for him because he was an advanced scout guy, game ahead. So he had Arizona's defense scouted and ready for Meacham and the offensive coaches and players to attack this week. So now he's seen it from that standpoint, and he's got to turn around and get caught up with what Arizona's offense looks like.
Real quick, I got one more question for you, and it's based off of something that Coach Meacham said in the press conference, which I thought was kind of funny. But we'll do that after a word from our wonderful sponsor at Brahms.
Satisfy your sweet tooth with a Brahms old-fashioned banana split. Crafted with a delicious banana, split down the middle and filled with not one, but 3 scoops of Brahms premium ice cream flavors. To complete this masterpiece, all your favorite toppings are poured on each scoop to bring it all together in a perfect harmony of flavor. Treat yourself to an old-fashioned banana split at Brahms, where every spoonful leaves you wanting more.
All right, John, as we get set to wrap up, one thing that Doug Meacham said that I did chuckle about was they were asking him about just different elements that happen over the course of the game and decisions that you have to make in real time. And as an OC, you don't necessarily have to make any of those. But wasn't his comment basically like, oh, I guess I do have to make that type of decision now that I'm here. Almost completely forgot about it. I chuckled about that because being a first-time head coach, like now that's happening with Doug Meacham, yeah, the first time out there when you don't have a whole lot of time to prepare, you kind of lose track of like, oh, well, I guess I am the one that ultimately has to make the decisions now.
Yeah, it was a great quote from Doug because it was referencing a 4th down decision that they had to make that they ultimately didn't pick up. There was a little swing pass to Rodney Fields and got stopped short of the line to gain. But it was the 4th down, and he, he's thinking about offensive plays and all this kind of stuff. And he would say, yeah, why are we going for it? What are we, soft? And then it dawned on him, wait, I'm the one that has to make that call. And they ultimately did. But then in typical Meacham fashion, the end of the comment about it was, I need to pay better attention to the entire game. When's the last time you heard a head coach say something like that? But it speaks to the situation again, and he'll be better with that. And I think he'll have these guys loose and ready to play because, in a sense, there's pressure that's not there for this team. It kind of boils back down to you're auditioning individually and, well, as a team too, but you're auditioning individually for whatever next year looks like, whether it's, the new coach, whoever that's going to be for OSU comes in, and whether he wants to keep you on the roster or whether somebody else likes what they see from you the rest of the way and they decide to make you an offer. So I think we talk about simplifying things. This is about as simple as you could expect things to get. It's just in the wake of a situation that nobody really wanted to see in the first place.
Interim Alabama head coach Joe Kynes, back from the Independence Bowl, said it best at one point, John, just go play. Just go play. That's kind of what Oklahoma State has to do right now moving forward. Hey, excited for your conversation with JB Long coming up later this week. It'll be great to see him. Not only a little TNT action, a little HBO. It's Max now. It was Max. I think it's HBO. I think it's just back to HBO, but they're simulcasting on that as well, but a new network for everyone to check out. So looking forward to that conversation at the end of the week, John, and appreciate you, as always, for all of your great work. And I'll let you give the tagline, please subscribe, because they're tired of me hearing it. They need to hear it from you.
Please subscribe. Baby needs new shoes. What is it? One of my good friends says, Daddy's got to work, baby's got to eat, mama's got to shop. Now, that might not be completely politically correct, but it's brutally honest.
I'll just say it right now. Listen, I want to go to the fair and get one of those turkey legs, which I hear is quite expensive now. So if you don't subscribe, I can't afford a turkey leg at the Tulsa State Fair. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. Please subscribe, as John said. We'll see you next time here live from the Oklahoma's own YouTube channel. And thanks again to our wonderful sponsor at Brahms. The next update you'll see, well, not my ugly mug, but a more professional looking mug of JB Long with John Holcomb.
Thank you for watching this Oklahoma's own Digital Studio sports presentation. Stay with News on 6, online and on television anytime for the latest news, weather, and sports.